Welcome to this learning session for STC India. And we recently hosted our annual conference. It was our return to in-person conference after the COVID forced us to go online. So that was the first, virtual for STC India in all these years. That is the 22nd year to say. So it was also a celebration of our 25th anniversary for STC India this year, as we had a fitting celebration with almost 350 plus delegates coming from all over India, and with more than 40 speakers over 2 days. So thanks everyone for making the in-person conference very, very successful at a time where people are still kind of struggling to come back to online physical conferences. But we also wanted to have some sessions online so that we can have a greater flexibility in terms of coverage and in terms of our audience to join. So one of the highlights of the conference was the buzz around AI. Though we covered some aspects of generative AI in the conference, our audience wanted to have some deep dive. I am also letting people in, sorry. So although we tried to cover some aspects of AI in the conference that we have, our audience wanted some deep dive and more sessions on AI. So there is AI and there is generative AI, as you know, right? So, and we all know that we are going to be impacted by these two strong forces in coming days, some way or the other. So, knowing that the TechCom community in India needs some direction on the next step for AI and Gen AI, we thought of coming up with a series of some sessions so that we can discuss various aspects to this, and also maybe we are able to give some directions to all of you as a community. So that's why we approached our very own Paresh Nayak, who is the Director of Information Design and Development at BMC Software, to host this series. So maybe as of now, we are planning for a monthly, once a month series, but let's see how it shapes up. If there is demand, maybe we can change the occurrences also. So Paresh is generally known, very famous as a salary survey man at STC India. But through this series, you'll be able to get to see a very different side of him altogether as he hosts this series on AI tools. So now I would like to invite Paresh to provide a context to the topic and also formally introduce our guest for this learning session today, Mr. Deepak Singla. And Deepak, thank you for joining today, and very, very warm welcome to STC India on behalf of everyone here. Also to the audience, you might be having a lot of questions as Paresh and Deepak engages in the conversation. So please keep your questions coming in through chat. So during the conversation, if they take a pause, they might start looking at it and cover some of the questions from all of you, or they will have a look at them at the end of the session. So let's have a great session. Paresh, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you. Thanks for introduction, and as well as thank you for creating this platform for a session on AI for tech writers. I think that's a right thing to do for an organization like STC at this time, because we are all about developing as a community. And we are all in this phase of trying to make sense of what this new technology is and how we can leverage it, how we can use it. Should we be happy, excited? Should we be scared, etc., etc.? And the whole purpose of this series is, when I was trying to explore different tools, I thought, why not include all of my friends in tech writing and kind of do it together? So I know as much as you know, but at the same time, I thought, instead of doing it in a silo, let's include everybody. And that's how, when I spoke to Rajiv, he said that's a great idea, and then he enabled this platform. So we are doing this as a series of tools that we think, the AI-based tools that we think technical writers can use in either in creating good content or helping customers consume the content that they have created, right? So today's tool that we are going to explore, Fini, is on the second bucket, where it will help our customers to consume the content that we have created in a much better way, right? Because we, in majority of the organizations that I have worked with and most of the conversations that I've had with fellow technical writers, I've realized findability of the content or searchability of the content is one of the major issues, especially as the content set increases in size. And that's where tools like Fini come into picture, where they can make it much more accessible to the um, users, your content. Because if you create great content, and if it is not found, it is as good as not created, right? So coming from that perspective, we thought instead of, so that's a good start of the series, to focus on a tool that enables our customers to consume our content. So that is the background of why this series, why this tool in the beginning. And I'm excited to have Deepak here. Deepak, I've been working with him for several weeks now, where we explored that tool for our own use at BMC. And I'm always excited to talk to people who, leave a lucrative job and take a plunge into entrepreneurship. And Deepak is one such person. So why don't you tell us about your journey, Deepak, to begin with? Let us get to know you as a person, and then we'll jump into your tool.
Thank you. Thanks, Paresh. It's great to have a lot of people here. It's always good to meet folks who are interested in the technology. So yeah, I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Deepak. I'm one of the co-founders at Fini. We're a fairly young company, started about 15 months ago. We went through Y Combinator last year, based in Silicon Valley. Before that, I was a product manager at Uber. So as Paresh said, why leave a lucrative job? But I think one thing that I saw when I was at Uber, I think one obviously good thing about working with tech companies is you get to see technology, like even being at big companies. So when I was at Uber, that's when I got introduced to generative AI. So I got introduced to generative AI in January of 2021, I think way before ChatGPT came in. ChatGPT came in like November 2022. So, and in fact, also, I guess a lot of you would know, but the first model from OpenAI, which like we use a bunch of models from OpenAI now, but the first model from OpenAI came in September of 2020. So the world has actually had this wonderful technology for close to 3 years now. I got introduced to it in January 2021. Spent about a year building internal things at Uber with that technology. Got introduced to a lot of people. The good part was because I was based in US, I actually like sort of got to learn a lot from the people. And then when I was like, oh, this thing is super powerful, this is actually going to change the world, that's when I was like, okay, it's like the time to leave Uber and start a company in this space. And what I really saw, what really excited me was, before this, whenever we thought about AI was, right, like what is AI? AI is kind of trying to make like machine things like think like humans, right? But before generative AI came in, AI was always to analyze content that has already been created. How do you analyze that? Which we typically called machine learning, and then just kind of used AI as a buzzword as well. But how generative AI is so different is because we are generating new content, which was not there before. That was the exciting part. And obviously, there's so many use cases. I know we only have 1 hour. Well, 1 hour is like not enough to talk about all use cases. But I'm obviously happy to talk about use cases in your specific fields, apart from Fini as well. I know I lead Fini, but because I'm in this space, I just know so many entrepreneurs building in AI. I kind of know a lot of tools as well. But yeah, the thing that really excited me for what we were building at Fini is what Paresh said, right? Like there's just so much content that is created inside organizations. So many teams create contents, product teams, marketing teams, engineering teams. And the reality is the content is good, but no one actually uses it because it's so vast. a new person joins in and they're like, what are these 5,000 documents? I have 5 questions. Can somebody answer those questions? The reality is like no one can, because they don't even know who to ask. But that's where generative AI changes. You can just feed it as much content as you want. So for example, some of our customers feed like about 50,000 documents. That's quite a lot. And we are then able to access those documents as well. Obviously, we'll talk more about it. But that's something that excited me. It was like sort of a paradigm shift that I saw. I was not kind of born when internet came. And then the next was the iPhone moment. And I really think this is that sort of next moment where a lot of great companies will be built, and just like all workflows will change. So yeah, that was kind of the exciting part that excited me to start Fini.
Great. I think you kind of alluded to my next question is this a hype, or is this really a history defining moment? Because you said compared it with launch of iPhone or launch of internet. But at the end of it, some people think, what you're getting is what you're feeding in anyway. I mean, how disruptive it can be, or is it just a hype when something new comes into the market for a few years and then you get diluted? What exactly it is from your perspective?
That's a great question. And like whenever like someone asks me this question, I try to refer to Yevon's paradox. I don't know if has anybody heard about that paradox?
No, go ahead for us who hasn't. If you haven't.
Okay, so it's basically like kind of goes way back 20 years ago. And this was the time when the British Navy used to run on coal. And it was kind of like, this was like the Saudi Arabia of the sea age. Like they had a lot of coal. And people were worried that what happens when the coal will run out. And then the engineers were like, oh no, actually just the engines will become more efficient and we'll use less coal, and then the coal will not run out. But what Yevon said was, no, if we make something more efficient, it'll just be cheaper to run and we'll actually just use more of it. It's not that like just because they're more efficient, we're using less of it. And that's what has actually happened in all of the defining moments. For example, all like kind of 200 years ago, right? Like humans used to pull things, but then like bullock carts came in and then automations came in. So all automations that actually make something easier to do, and we just want to do more of it, that's something that has always changed things, right? So for example, cars were made through hand first, and then it's like, oh, now it would be cheaper to do like kind of make cars and like less people would be using cars. No, it's cheaper to make cars. It's just more people will use cars. And then companies who then adopted machines to actually make cars, because initially people were like, oh, if we use machines, then people will lose jobs. But the reality is people did not lose jobs. You just created more jobs when you started using machines, because you were just using things more effectively. And that is what happened. Like all technologies that just make you do things more effectively are the ones that actually succeed long term. Obviously, there's a long way for AI to go, right? Like AI has not been like, it's been there for like 15 years, parts of it. Generative AI has only been here for 3 years. So it's obviously pretty early to say, but at least from what I see in like hundreds of companies across in my circle, wherever AI is being integrated into companies' workflows, it's just making things cheaper to run, and it's just making those companies a lot more effective. So initially when it came in, companies were like, oh no. So for example, like there's one use case, right? A customer support use case. When AI came in, customer support leaders were like, oh, I'll actually lose half my team because like AI will actually take their jobs. The reality is that's not happening. So for example, we today work with more than 100 customers. Like we have had 0 team downsizes. What really happens is just the experience improves, everything improves. Something that took 10 minutes to answer now takes less than a minute to answer. So it's just because teams are becoming more effective, they're creating better experiences. And that's what I really see across in all applications. Obviously, there's what people are also trying to do is people are trying to put AI everywhere. They're like, oh, AI is this really cool thing. They're going to change how I brush my teeth in the morning. No, that's not going to happen, right? But if you find the right use cases, we're really seeing those efficiency gains, like those 10x efficiency gains. that happen. And yeah, that's why I really feel AI is that sort of next step that's going to change the world.
Interesting. Right. I think when you just said, I was going to brush my teeth in the morning, I realized maybe some of us are still in that phase. This is about 50 people in the in this webinar here, right? Not everybody has invested time in understanding what this exactly is. So can you just maybe take 5 minutes to quickly take us through the basics of what we are talking about during the rest of the webinar today? When you say generative AI or AI was around or large language models, maybe just a few basics.
Yeah, so in very simply, I think what I was alluding earlier to as well, let's first start with what AI is, right? AI, as we all know, it's something super basic. It's not basic, but like in very basic terms, AI means it tries to make computers think and act like humans. That's kind of like the broad term for AI. And that's something that we've been trying to do for like 20 years, right? So for example, something very similar like a calculator. So when you had calculator, you're kind of trying to make it like kind of act and think like humans. But a lot of those things that happened in the past were something has already been created, and then we were trying to analyze. Okay, this has been created. So we're trying to analyze. So that was kind of the first kind of descriptive thing that came in. Then we moved on to a word where we tried to predict things, which we called predictive modeling, things like regressions and so on, where we're like, okay, this has happened. If A happened and B happened, what's the probability of C happening? That was more of the predictive modeling. The second part came in. But now what is happening is now we have generative AI. And what generative AI does is generative AI helps us create new content. So it's not just about analyzing the content that was created before, it is generative new content. And how that is happening is previously, because whenever something was being analyzed, it was about X happened in the past, what's the probability for Y? Now, when large language models were trained was large language models, for example, I'll take the example of ChatGPT's model, which is GPT 3.5. It was trained on about 10% of the internet. So now what we have is there is this kind of thing of, in like very simple terms, is like the smart kid that learned 10% of the internet. And now this smart kid, based on that knowledge, can generate new content as well. So cannot just analyze content. It can create new content. And because it has learned this, so just think of it about like when we are growing up and we are learning about things, like if I knew that, oh, this is a cat and this is red color, and if I see a cat in red color, I'll be pretty easily able to see that, oh, this is a cat in red color. I can actually like sort of devise complex relationships, right? Previously, models were not able to do that. But now, because models just have a reinforcement learning, that they're actually able to learn from different parts and apply that at other places. That's exactly what happens. For example, when you go to ChatGPT and you ask a question about your business or something, it's not that it actually somebody has fed that question. No, it just knows a lot about data and it understands the complex relationships about that data, that it is actually able to construct or create or generate an answer for you. So that really is what generative AI is.
Interesting. So with that background, I think it's time to let's get into what is Fini. Tell us a little bit about your company and then maybe jump into the demo of the tool.
Yeah, 100%. I can, let me share my screen. Probably this is a good time to share screen.
Maybe I'll make you the host now. One request is you have to keep on looking at the waiting room and keep letting people in.
Yeah, I can let people in.
Yes, over to you.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, actually, I wanted to show this picture first. Before we go to what Fini is, do you guys think this, and like you can say in the chat or I don't know, react with emojis. You think this is a real picture or an AI picture?
No, it's not real.
Okay, and do you see any inconsistencies in the picture?
Yes,
Which is?
that is second person from the left.
Yes, that's correct. The second person from the left has 3 legs.
Oh. Okay.
Yes. So, and how this picture was created was just with this prompt. What someone said was, I need a photograph of advertising people discussing on creativity on a stage in a panel on a beach at the Cannes Lions. And then AI created this image. So the thing is, someone writes this. It's not that AI actually has this, right? Like it is trying to actually generate this because it knows and learns about all of these words. And the thing is, AI is not perfect today. It is getting better every day because I've seen the journey in the last 3 years. Like 3 years ago, it will, instead of hands, it will create hands with like 10 fingers. The hands will not be there and so on. So it has come a long way, but it still makes mistakes like this. It's not perfect today. And which is also the reason as well why companies like our companies exist, is because when you directly try and use something like a chat GPT, or in this case, this was created for Midjourney. So Midjourney is kind of like chat GPT for images. Just how you can actually ask chat GPT to create text content for you, you can ask Midjourney to create images for you. Now, the thing is, whenever you try and ask either ChatGPT or Midjourney to create content for you, they've just been created in a way that they always want to create content. Even if they don't know how to do it, they'll be like, yes, you asked me, let me create something for you. So, and when you try to use this technology in your business, right, if you want to bring something to your employees or your customers, you want something that's accurate. You don't want something that actually creates things like this. It's okay if it says, I do not know. If it's not super confident, instead of trying to just give you some answer, it should just say, I do not know, because then that person can actually go and ask someone. Because, for example, if there are 100 questions being asked, and if you can answer 80 and for 20, just say, I do not know, that's perfectly fine. Because then, you know, at least the 80 that I'm getting, they're actually good. They are actually good answers. And then for the 20, you can like sort of reach other people. So that's super important. And I think kind of theme of what I'm going to talk about going forward as well. So this is what we do at Fini. So Fini is kind of ChatGPT built for your business. So in ChatGPT, what you're doing is you're asking it questions, right? Whatever, who is Elon Musk? Tell me about Tesla and so on. So it's just general information. It doesn't understand your business. It doesn't understand your data. What we do as a company is we let you feed all of your data. Like that data could really be anywhere, Google Drive, Confluence, or just documents, or just data tables as well, your databases. Whatever data that exists, we allow you to feed all of that data to Fini and turn that into AI chat. And it literally takes a couple of minutes to set everything up. And how, like this is kind of a visual, right? Like you can actually feed all types of text data. And when you turn that into Fini, it would actually turn that into an AI chat. And the important part of this is our product is built in a way that when it doesn't know something, it'll just say that I do not know the answer to it, rather than trying to answer everything. And like today, we are at about 98% accuracy with our customers with getting answers. So that has been quite a journey. Like when we started this company like more than a year ago, we were at 76% accuracy because we were just building on top of ChatGPT. If you try and just use ChatGPT to get these answers, then you would be at that 75%, 70 to 80% accuracy. But then getting to this number is really building the tooling around to make sure that it gets a lot more confident on answering for your specific business. So kind of fine tuning. So it's kind of like taking that smart kid that knows the word and then teaching that smart kid your specific data to be able to answer questions. What a lot of other companies would do is they would take, instead of taking the smart kid and teaching them your data, they would just take the smart kid and try and send this data on and kind of whenever a question is asked, they will try and send this specific data there. And then in this case, is what happens is it kind of gets confused. Do I use this data that ChatGPT has, or do I use this data that was just sent to me right now? So there needs to be this proper segregation layer that has to be created, which obviously like a lot of companies have tried to do this in-house as well, which is obviously also good as well. Like you can do this in-house, but it's a lot of effort to try and build all of this tooling in-house. So this is what we do. And really like there's just three things that we like really focus on, right? And which really matters. Obviously, there's all of this jazz around. We don't focus on like a lot of other jazz. We focus on three metrics inside our company. One is we need to be the most accurate product. We need to be the fastest product, and we need to be the most secure solution. Accuracy I've talked about. Being fast is important, right? If someone asks a question, no one wants to wait for like 30 seconds or 1 minute to get an answer. I know previously we would ask a question and we probably would email someone else in the team and wait for days. But now in the ChatGPT world, everyone wants the answer like right now, which is super important to us as well. So for example, we can get answers in like sub 3 seconds, which is even like faster than ChatGPT. And then finally, obviously, is security is very important, right? If you're using your internal company data, you don't want it to be leaked. You don't want it to be used for other companies to train. So you want your specific instance just trained for you, for your employees or customers, or to be able to answer. I see there's a couple of questions. Are there questions in chat? Oh, no, someone just said it was hallucinating. Okay, before going deeper, are there any questions that anybody has?
Yes, if you have any questions, then maybe whoever is asking question can unmute, but please make sure to mute yourself again. Don't think.
I have a question about the security, Deepak. When you say most secure, that's most of the times the concerns the companies that, will our data go to some public domain where other people will use it? What will happen to our IP? So when we use Fini, what actually happens to the data? Where does it go and how does it stay secure? And how do you make sure that the IP remains with the company that is using Fini?
So multiple things. So the first thing that happens is we have two options. One is either that data goes in a cloud instance created for that specific company. So let's say we're working with Indigo, let's say. So what will happen is there will be an instance that will be created for Indigo, and all of the data that Indigo has will always just be on that instance. And that is never used to cross-train. So all of that is on Google Cloud. Obviously, if the companies want it to be on their own cloud, we actually have a Docker image as well where we can deploy it on their cloud. But most of our customers are comfortable having on our cloud. So it gets stored there, and only like that specific company's models are trained on that data. So it's not that we have like this one massive model and we're using everyone's data to train. We're not doing that. So because we build it specifically for businesses, and that's why we work with large businesses as well, because then it makes sense to be building it for businesses. Obviously, we have this other product as well, which is kind of more like for smaller customers where everyone can feed in their data, but that's got completely separate. Whenever we work with big companies, enterprises, always stays in those instances. Now there's one other important part, right, which is what happens in OpenAI's interactions. So in that case, what happens is, so we are a Y Combinator company. OpenAI is also a Y Combinator company. So that's good that we actually like pretty close to their team. So we work really closely with them. So we have a data processing agreement with them, and they only give data processing agreements to companies that are spending at least $100,000 per month, which is what we do with them. So in that case, that data processing agreement ensures that even OpenAI is not using that data to actually train or cross-train any of that models, and right after the API call, that data is deleted.
Perfect. I think that's exactly the concern that most of the legal departments would have is, what will happen if somebody else asks the same question and they'll get a pattern from what we are researching. Okay, perfect. I think we can move forward. This is good. I don't
Okay,
see any
lovely.
questions in the chat. Yeah.
Lovely. I think what I can do is I can very quickly show you how our product works. Because when I say that we can actually turn your data into chat in 2 minutes, what does that mean? So what we can do is, so this is our interface, super simple to use. You will see there, like I'll just explain the tabs here. One is the setup tab. This is where you'll actually come and set up a new bot for yourself. So if you want a specific bot, for example, for your let's say internal employees to have access to some information, you will come here and set that up. Ask is where you can actually ask questions, and deploy is where you can actually deploy it to your tools. For example, if you use Microsoft Teams and you want to deploy it on Microsoft Teams, you can then deploy it to Microsoft Teams or whatever software that you use internally. If you want to deploy it through APIs, or if you just want to put like a Fini chat widget somewhere, you can do all of that. And this Ask Fini, obviously, this like is one is it's for testing. You can actually test here, or otherwise you can use this interface as well. And then obviously there's a team tab. Whoever you want to invite from your team can actually come here. So what we'll do is let's probably set something up right now. If someone has, so how our product works is you can actually give it a link. It will actually understand everything that's there on that link, and then you can actually start asking questions. If someone has a link who wants to give, now is the time to post in the chat. Otherwise, I can pull one as well.
So when you post a link, would you go into the sublinks of that, or would you pick only the parent link?
Or we go into all links.
Okay. So if anybody has a small docset, you want to go ahead and put your URL, make sure it's public content. It's not internal content for now, just to be secure.
Yeah,
all right. I think
at
people
least
are not prepared,
start
Deepak,
with.
so just go ahead and add your own. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for now, what I can do is I can just like take this sample link, which is from this company called as Instacart. It's a grocery delivery company based in US. So I'll
there
just
we
take
saw 1 second. Deepak, there is one from Namrata, G-Scaler.
Is it an entire help center?
Namrata, maybe you want to unmute
so
and say
that's
how
an
big it
entire health
is.
center. So we have
How
like
big it
multiple
would-
products and everything is linked. So I just wanted to see how it works. Because you
Okay,
said
got
it
it.
could actually crawl through all the links, right?
It can crawl through all the links. It's just that when it's crawling through the links, it just takes like some small amount of time to crawl through the links.
Do you want to
But
give a sub-product there, Namrata?
We could do the first one, security, internet, and SAP access. ZIA, the first one.
Which one?
The first crumb in the breadcrumbs, right? If you go to documentation, you can click on the first link.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, this one also has multiple articles?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like crawling this would take about 10 minutes or so.
You want you could go to any
so
of
probably
the
exactly. Let's try with a couple links. Obviously, I think Namrata, what we can do is we can like do all of these offline as well, but let's just try with this one for now. So here, like, I'll just quickly show you a couple options here as well. So whenever you're actually creating a bot here, there's this option to select the knowledge base source language as well. So the key bit is, because obviously our product is global, sometimes what happens is your documents are actually in English, but people will actually ask questions in Hindi or whatever, some other local language. So we actually support all of that. So if documents are in English, like knowledge-based source language here is pretty simple. We just keep it English. But obviously, if it's some other language, you can always use auto-detect as well. And then what I would just do is I would then just press create bot. And then what happens is the bot is created. It's just one link. It's obviously pretty quick. And then what you have is you have a few options here. So the options here is the knowledge base mix. Now, this is where what I was talking about on how you want to limit the bot. When you say knowledge base only, in that specific case, what happens is that it will only look at your knowledge base when it's trying to answer questions. Because the important part here is sometimes when you actually are doing a more customer facing use case, right? In that customer facing use case, you don't want to have general knowledge. You don't want to actually sort of take the risk of having sort of customers getting some information that ChatGPT says. So you don't really want that. In that specific case, you would only be able, you can enable both general knowledge and knowledge base. But when you do knowledge base only, then it will only answer from this specific page. And then additional instructions is somewhere where you will actually give a specific instruction to the bot on how you want it to answer. So we obviously have a huge prompt library, which we share with our customers. So I'll just give you a sample prompt and quickly walk through it as well to just show how good generative AI is in understanding what you tell it, right? So in here, for example, what we'd say is, I'm giving it a character, calling it Clippy, and I'm saying you're a helpful customer service agent and you're answering questions for this specific company. And I'm then saying, start with a greeting, be excited to help your users. And if you need more information about a question, ask follow-up questions. And I'm also saying you cannot take actions and so on. And obviously, this prompt itself gets pretty massive when we actually go to a specific customers, because then you want to figure out how do you control output length, what to do in terms of actions, greetings, and so on. And also things like what happens if you actually have this bot on your website, right? And people love chatting, especially when they can get instant answers. Even if, for example, they have job related queries, they'll just come and say, oh, can I get a job at this company? And so on. So how can you control all of that is something that gets pretty key. And that's something that is actually controlled by the prompt. So all of that, we actually then control using the prompt. Yeah, obviously, this is something that we share with all customers. If any of you want access to any of these things, you can obviously just drop me an email after, and we can go through it. I don't know if I actually showed my email ID, but this is my email ID, deepak@usefini.com. You can just note, I'll just put it in the chat also for everyone. Okay. Okay, let's go back here. So once you have the additional instructions, this is where you can choose the chat language as well. So we support more than 100 languages. So there's two options here. When you default to English, what happens is whenever someone asks a question, it actually auto texts their language. So if I ask a question in Hindi, it will answer in Hindi. If I ask in Gujarati, it will answer in Gujarati. And then if you wanted to answer only in one specific language, if you choose Hindi, what happens is no matter what language I ask it in, it will always answer in Hindi. Usually that's why it's just better to default to English, because then you know that, okay, this customer is comfortable in this language, and then you'll actually answer in that specific language. Swapnil has a question. Can it help us to generate keywords for a web page? Swapnil, do you want to expand on that? What keywords are you looking at?
Swapnil, you can unmute and speak if you want to.
Deepak, I suggest this is unrelated to the flow, so maybe you can take it at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Let's
okay.
do that.
Let's
so
do that.
we don't break the flow of the demo. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah. Then what happens is, now that we have actually read the link, what we can do is we can actually then start asking questions about this specific link. So let's do this. Let's first let's just save changes here. Actually, I was just looking at the logs. Namrata, your website doesn't allow external people to read your pages. Just FYI.
Oh. Yeah, no
Yes.
idea about that.
Yes. But so what I'll do is, since that doesn't happen, I'll just default to this specific page. So this specific page was talking about how do you track your delivery. So if you see here, I have this bot where I've trained it on this specific page and it says, how do you track your delivery, right? So I'll go here, I will choose this bot. Let me ask an unrelated question, like, which actually is not something that's there, right? I'll ask, what is Instacart? That's not something that's there, but because we chose the setting, which was general knowledge plus knowledge base, it can fall back to its general knowledge and answer. But the key bit here is, if you see here, it says that we didn't find any reference links for this question. So it's telling you that I don't have a reference link for this, but because I have general knowledge, I'm still giving you an answer, but there's no reference link for this. But what if I actually ask a question which is related to what was there? What was there? Tracking your order, right? So if I ask, how do I track my order? Now, this is something that was there, right? So now it should be able to answer. And you see that it actually understands it so well. Like tracking the order, I think the link itself talked about specific things that you track in the app, you track like this, on the website, you track like this. And you're like, if you're on the app, do this. If you're on the website, then do this. And then obviously it starts giving some other information about the specific question as well. And then important part is at the end, it can give a reference link. So let's say if we have like thousands of links, right? It's helpful for users, like whenever I give an answer, for users to just know where did we get this information from, so that they can also always, if they want to go back to the document and like read more, they can always do that. So this is something that has been obviously pretty helpful for our customers. What I'll also do is, now that we're doing the demo, I'll try and show it to you guys on a couple other products as well. So for example, the best part about Fini is that it's never tied to like a specific specific tool. So you can actually deploy Fini anywhere, right? So like, for example, one of the examples that I was giving was that you can deploy Fini on, let's say, Teams, or I don't know how many of you use Slack. It's super easy to just deploy Fini on Slack. It's just like a one-click deploy on Slack. You don't really need any code for using any of our product. It's easy to add documents. It's easy to deploy. For example, this is one of the examples. Oh, wait, actually, my screen sharing is not complete. Okay, hopefully you guys can see my screen. So this is one of the examples from one of the customers that we're testing with. So in here, what we've done is we've actually deployed Fini on Slack. In that case, what you can then do is you can just deploy this on whatever your internal messaging channel, and then you can come here and actually tag Fini and say, oh, what are R&D credits? And this questions, like if you see here, they're like, they can actually get pretty complex as well, which can actually like sort of, they don't really have to be in their FAQs, but if you need very complex order relationships, right? Like understand something from one document, but then execute something that's like, for example, in fifth document, that's kind of the power for generative AI. Previously, things had to be in FAQ format, but now we can understand super complex relationships about documents. You can feed it thousands of documents. It can understand the context from those and then actually answer your question. And that is the good part why with our customers, we're able to automate about 80% of all of their either support or their employee queries, because we are so good at understanding the overall context across documents. So that's also where we do a lot of work, because if you see OpenAI and its public APIs only allows you to feed 4,000 tokens, which is about 3,000 words. But your documents would be like millions of words, right? So how do you actually fit all of that content to be able to understand the context and answer complex questions? So that's what we do as well.
Hey, Deepak, I have a question about what you demoed just now. So like I come from a cloud security company, right? Zscaler, and I'm trying to understand, when you have something so intrinsic, is there discretion? Like, because Slack can also be a public platform, right? It doesn't specifically have to be linked to any organization. So if a particular organization is using Fini to get, information, or, just for general access, would a third person outside of the organization also be able to get the information of that organization through this? Does that make sense?
When you're deploying it on Slack?
Yes, I'm taking Slack as an example.
When you're taking Slack an example, then yes, then Slack can actually look at that data, which is why it actually is sort of important. So the thing is, Slack, the only data that Slack can look at is the answers itself. So for example, we've trained a model, and that model has obviously all of your data. The only data Slack can look at is what is on here. Slack cannot look at the documents that we use to train and so on. So what is happening is, when this person is actually asking this question, it is actually hitting our APIs and giving this response, the response that's there on this thread. So Slack can look at this response, but Slack cannot look at the data because that's not stored in Slack. That's on our cloud.
Okay. Okay. So, why I'm asking you this is because recently, it could be just specific to our company, our organization, but I just wanted to give that as an example. So recently, all the public channels also in the Slack channels that we have in our organization were made private because of security threat, right? And those security threat were because of OpenAI or generative AI. I'm not sure about that, but apparently because you could get any sort of an information from open channels in Slack and not necessarily restricted to the organization. So I wanted to understand, how does it actually help in terms of security? I know we're going a little off track, but I just wanted to understand in terms of security, isn't it very intrusive to have generative AI have all access to your database and give it out like that, when you actually ask them questions about the company and you have all the data available, right? So in terms of security, how secure is it?
Brilliant question. So I think there's like kind of two parts to this question, right? Like one is Slack specific and one is just broader. So the broader part is when you say that you're actually giving access to generative AI to all of companies' data, that's where what I mentioned when I started is that access is limited to your specific instance. So like no one else, like for example, Paresh's company doesn't have access to your data. It is just you who has access to all of that data that has been given. So that's super important. Just your company has access to it. And inside your company as well, there's a roles-based access where you can very easily control who are the people that actually have access to it. And that data store, or where the models are trained, has nothing to do with Slack. That is at a completely separate place. It's completely secure. It's not used to cross-train. It's not used to train any of OpenAI's models. It is there for your specific model, which is why we call ourselves ChatGPT for your business, because it is something that's very specific to your model. Now, that's one part of it. The other part of it is in terms of deploying Fini to Slack, you can actually deploy Fini to private channels as well. So in that case, what happens is Fini gets access to only that private channel. And in terms of access, the only access that we take is during the times when you actually mention Fini. So for example, in here, if you're actually talking amongst yourselves and you've not mentioned Fini, we do not have any access. But if you specifically mention Fini and say, hey, Fini, tell me this, or like add Fini AI, and then type your question, the only thing that Fini reads is that specific question. And then it does an API call to that cloud instance and then fetches the answer. And like when we're fetching the answer, like Slack doesn't know about all of the documents and everything. Slack has no ideas. The only thing we send to Slack is this answer, which is these 3 lines.
All right.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, Deepak. Can I go ahead?
Yes, of course.
Actually, you said while demoing, you mentioned that a link is also provided, right? So in Slack, the link is not provided because you're saying that Slack has access to only the answers which it gives and not the data, whatever it is trained.
No, on
A
Slack
reference
as well.
link.
On Slack as well, we can provide the link. So it really depends on if you want to provide the link or not, but we can provide the link in Slack as well.
But says like if you provide that link in the Slack, then the entire all of them will have the access to those documents, right? Which you said
No,
those
no,
people will no.
no,
Okay.
no. So let me give an example. Can you see
Okay.
my screen?
Yes.
So if you see here, like I'm asking, ask Fini AI, tell me about Stimlet, and then I give this answer. And if you see here in C references, I have these links that were used. So Slack has no idea about what's underneath these links. The only thing Slack has is this like link itself. And only people who have access to this link will be able to open the link. So for example, you give some private documents, you give me 5 private documents, and I actually add the links to those documents. And let's say only 5 people in your company have access to like that link. If I go and open that link and I don't have access to it, I just see like a 403. I just see that this page is not available or I don't have access to it. And no one in Slack also gets access to it. So the only thing Slack is getting is the link itself, but nothing
Got it.
underneath the link.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I have a question, Deepak. May I ask?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to know what if the outcome, I mean, these steps are a part of installation manual and there's a image embedded in that manual. Will that image also populate right here?
Yes, we do. We support all rich media text. So images, tables, videos, GIFs, whatever, we populate all of that in the output.
Okay, one more quick question. Is there a feedback mechanism inbuilt with Fini? I mean, suppose I'm an installation person and I, quickly get this procedure and I see a issue or I want to, enhance the procedure. Is there a possibility wherein I can directly, I mean, if
Yes.
I'm a customer, I can directly write back to the writer?
Yes, there is. Obviously we can like kind of dig deeper into it, but what happens is whenever someone does a thumbs down on a specific answer, then we can actually ask the user that, oh, what did you expect? Or like, what was the right answer? And if someone puts in that answer, it goes back to our model. And then what we do is like right now, the frequency is every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, all of that input that came in, we actually then retrain the model on that. But we are working on making that more real time.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, hey Deepak,
And
one question in similar line.
yes.
Do code blocks will also get populated in the output when along with images and this sort of thing?
Yep.
In installation, if we have specific steps to be followed and which is in code blocks, so that will also.
Yes. Yes. We like anything that you can think of in terms of. So I think which is why I like to refer to this slide. So anything that you can think of in terms of inputs in text, which is like API docs, code blocks, or even your entire code base as well, or any types of text documents, tables, and so on. You can actually input any of this and then output any of this.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hello, hi Deepak. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Deepak, actually, my question was from an SEO perspective. So, if there's a web page for filing taxes, if there's some software or a website which helps us to file taxes successfully, can we generate some keywords related to this particular website using Fini?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, because the important part is what Fini can do is Fini can read the content, and based on that, he can actually ask it to do anything. And like what you are trying to do, so there's 2 parts to it, right? One is searching information, which is a pretty core use case, which is something that was there across 10 different documents, and we're able to synthesize and search information. But the other thing is, like, if you have a document, you can actually kind of ask it to generate more content about it as well. That's not really our core use case, but technically we can.
Okay. And also from the social media perspective, can it help us to set up targeting and everything for paid ads on social media?
No, not today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So in terms of core use cases, just for everyone to know as well, there's two core use cases that are like, I mean, obviously, like with our tech, you can do a lot, but two core use cases on which we continue to build and bring more features are, one is sort of a customer-facing customer support use case, where your customers have questions related to your product, and that product could be just general, like like an ops related product or a simple tech product, or it could just be like, let's say, your documentation. For example, OpenSea. I don't know if you guys have heard about OpenSea, but OpenSea is one of our customer where their developers actually ask questions related to their API docs. So it's either that or just customers asking questions. For example, the Instacart example that I gave. So for example, we work with Duolingo, which is pretty similar to the Instacart example, where people would ask, how do I use the app? Like, how do I buy a subscription and things like that? That's a more customer facing use case. And then we have an internal use case as well. So for example, for internal use case, I don't think I can actually name the banks, but we actually work with a couple of pretty big Indian banks. One of them I can, IND Money. Probably you guys have heard about it. So IND Money uses us for two use cases. One is a customer-facing use case, where if you are their customer and if you go to IND Money chat, we power all of that chat. If you ask like, oh, why did my last transaction fail? Or how do I buy stocks in IND Money and things like that? All of that is powered by Fini. And then the second part is an sort of employee-facing use case where internal employees can ask questions related to all of these documents. Yeah, so those are the core use cases that we work on.
So Deepak, there was a question about pricing model, and somebody sent them to the link on your website.
Yes.
So does that answer any? Do you want to add to that, or that's all about?
Yeah, actually, pricing model really depends on your use case, right? Because on our website, there's only so much pricing that we can put in. So we've tried to put in like some basic pricing, like two kind of pricing important things there, but I'll quickly go as well. So one is our sort of advanced model where we only charge based on questions. Like there's no minimum charge, there's no specific other charges for, I don't know, number of documents and so on. So we only charge based on per question. And then the other part is where we have a minimum billing. This minimum billing is where obviously we work pretty closely with you to also discover new use cases inside the company as well. Obviously, the models that we use here are in here we use GPT-4, which is basically our top models. In here we use GPT 3.5, and we have seen that GPT-4 itself has up to 40% higher accuracy. So I think if you want to understand more about pricing, it's better to drop me an email, and I would be very happy to like have a chat and see how we can help and what the pricing could be. But yeah, this is like a good starter in terms of what the pricing looks like.
Perfect. Because already at the end of the scheduled time, I would just like to give another chance to the audience if they have any questions. I know we covered
one more. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No, ask.
Okay. Deepak, I was just wondering, what if we use this model for support engineers, right? Now, as of now, we put the content on web and n number of support engineers, and otherwise like customer support people, and the customers end users can also access that web page. Now, if we go with this model, is there a limit? Because you said you can give access to the people. Is there a limit to how many people can use, be granted that access or something? I mean, just for wondering, I don't know.
No, there's no limit. There's a couple of things, right? I'm guessing you're asking about limit to our portal, right?
Yes. I mean, if we deploy this and then we provide access to people, I mean, is there anything around this?
No, if you deploy it, then the thing is like, this is an admin portal. Like this, only those people should have access who want to come in, like you want to be able to like them to create new bots, change languages, change instructions and so on. If you only want to deploy it to customers, like our top customer has like 10 million users. So when you deploy it to customers, then there is like no, like, because customers don't see the setup. The customers will only see a chat widget. So we have a Fini chat widget. Actually, let me see, maybe I can pull it up very quickly. So customers will only see that chat widget, and then they are just chatting with a widget. So can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean the normal one. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So for customers, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think the unit of measure is not customers, the questions, right? That's what it is. So whether one customer asks 1,000 questions, 1,000 customers ask one question each, is the same billing. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Unit is not customers. Unit is just number of questions. And the number of questions itself, like right now, you will see a pricing based on number of questions. But obviously, as the volume increases, this pricing goes down exponentially as well. Which is why I mentioned that if someone wants to like know more about pricing, it's better to drop me an email, because then I can give like a more comprehensive pricing view.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Deepak, is there anything that important that we missed to cover, because we at the end of the hour, I just wanted to give an opportunity to cover anything that we have not, which we should have.
No, I think that's pretty much it. Probably what's just helpful for everyone to know is if someone just wants to read more about how things work, like what are some key features that we have, how we differentiate our roadmap. So we have a public roadmap. Every 2 weeks, we just put our top releases here so that people can just like go and have a look. Some of the security measures that I was talking about, all the security certifications that we have are mentioned here, and just some of the other basic platform tips, right? Like you obviously have me whenever you need to know something, but it's obviously always helpful to go here and figure out how to create a bot, how to deploy at multiple places, use a Chrome extension, stuff like that. So I think just our docs portal is super helpful, or docs.usefini.com. And obviously, if you guys want to like chat more or learn more about some of our customers, what we are doing, or just like sort of brainstorm use cases at your company, you can always drop me an email at deepak@usefini.com.
Nobody will be more happy to hear that you're referring them to documentation, because we earn our bread by creating that kind of stuff. So good. I'm happy to hear that.
I was actually just thinking that, it's an AI tool and we're talking about referring to documentation. So yay, we are relevant.
Perfect.
We used our product to create all of our documentation.
Yes. All right, but I'm assuming there is a link to trial versions for people who want to trial and so on and so forth, right? Perfect.
Yeah. So if you want to try it out, you can go to app.usefini.com. The only I would say drop me an email also, because the only thing with just people, if you try it out yourself, sometimes, for example, if you don't give us permissions, like for example, the use case with Namrata, like if you don't give us permissions to do it, then you would not find out that our bot actually has not gotten permissions. It's just better to reach out to me so I can actually help you get set up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Deepak, I just had one more question. Suppose if I'm working on a content audit for a particular website, can Fini or any AI help me to identify those content gaps in the website and help me to give me some suggestions to fill those gaps to enhance the traffic to my website?
We can take this offline, Swapnil. There are a couple of tools, because I think what you are trying to do is more like trying to figure out, like generate keywords, figure out what their ranking on Google is, and then try and optimize that. So there are a few tools, but feel free to drop me an email. I can actually link you to those tools and the best way to do it.
Yes,
perfect.
Thank you.
All right, Deepak, I know we've so many other questions, but we'll reach out to you offline for that. It was a great session, great demo. Thanks a lot for your time. And Rajiv, thanks again for making this platform available. For all of you, we'll meet you again next month with another tool which is relevant to our profession and is built on AI.
Thanks, Paresh, for hosting this and leading the series, and Deepak for your time. And everyone, if you have any questions, please keep pouring them. You know our email address. You can also reach out to Deepak directly. So Deepak, thanks again for being here.
It's course.
Bye-bye.
Super awesome being here. Thanks everyone for all the questions. Always love chatting about this with everyone. Yeah,
Sure, thank you.
and
Thanks, everyone.
hopefully I'll probably see you in one of the future sessions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. Great.
Definitely. Bye. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.